There is a presence that unsettles more than anger, more than noise, more than threats. It does not shout, it does not demand, it does not even attempt to be noticed. And yet, the silence it carries bends the room, reshapes conversations, shifts the balance of power without a single word. This is the presence Machiavelli understood, the kind that rules not by performance, but by restraint, not by giving, but by refusing to give. To master it, you must become what he called the void. The void is not weakness, not absence, not confusion. The void is power through emptiness, control through invisibility, dominance through silence. A man who becomes the void does not chase, does not explain, does not expose himself to judgment. Instead, he offers nothing, no emotion, no validation, no hunger, and in offering nothing, he forces everyone else to offer everything. For people cannot endure a vacuum. They cannot accept ambiguity. They will fill it with their own words, their own insecurities, their own confessions. The void does not fight them. It makes them fight themselves. This is Machiavelli's law. When you become unreadable, they write their own fears and desires into you. When you become still, they move for you. When you become nothing, they give you everything. People are addicted to clarity. They want to decode, to categorize, to label. Predictability feels safe, and so they chase it. But here lies the paradox. What they cannot predict, they cannot control, and what they cannot control, they cannot ignore. The more mysterious you are, the more space their minds create for you. They invent stories. They imagine depth. They project power where perhaps there is only discipline. But perception is stronger than truth. Machiavelli knew this. A prince who reveals too much becomes ordinary, and an ordinary prince is disposable. But a prince who remains unreadable, who withholds his true nature, who offers only fragments, becomes a figure of legend. His silence becomes a canvas for the imagination of his subjects. His restraint becomes their obsession. Consider history's giants, the ones remembered not for endless speeches, but for silence heavy with meaning. Caesar would pause, letting his enemies drown themselves in their own arguments before he spoke. Sun Tzu wrote that supreme excellence lies in making the enemy destroy himself without battle. African rulers like Shaka Zulu intimidated entire tribes not by filling the air with words, but by standing expressionless, unreadable, so that others projected danger into his stillness. In every age, in every culture, the man who offers nothing becomes the one who receives everything. Because silence is not neutral. Silence is not passive. Silence is a weapon when wielded with intent. Most people leak themselves everywhere. They over-explain, they overshare, they expose every thought and every fear, believing that visibility earns respect. But Machiavelli warns, visibility earns limits. The more they know, the more they measure. The more they measure, the more they control. A man fully known is a man reduced, categorized, put in a box from which he cannot escape. A man who keeps himself hidden cannot be cornered. He is shapeless, formless, impossible to pin down. His enemies swing at shadows while he moves untouched. This is why the void terrifies, because in a world where everyone wants to be understood, the one who refuses to be known controls the terms of every interaction. Look at nature. The black hole dominates the galaxy not by shining, not by broadcasting its existence, but by swallowing light itself. The ocean's depth commands respect, not because it yells, but because it conceals, because it hides, because you cannot measure its floor. The storm that is silent before it breaks is always the most feared. These are the metaphors Machiavelli relied upon. The man who is still, who does not announce, who withholds, becomes a natural force. Others sense him even when he does not speak. They fear his absence because they cannot interpret it. They crave his attention because he refuses to give it. And so the void creates gravity. Gravity does not beg. Gravity does not chase. Gravity pulls simply by existing. When you learn to cultivate restraint, you cease to live in their frame. They cannot provoke you because you do not react. They cannot seduce you because you do not need to. They cannot categorize you because you do not reveal. Instead, they're the ones who perform, who overreach, who collapse into desperation. The void is not an escape from battle. It is the silent battlefield where the opponent destroys himself. Imagine a negociación. Two men sit across from each other. One speaks constantly, filling the silence with justifications, proposals, concessions, desperate to convince. The other remains silent, still watching. Who owns the room? Not the talker, for the more he says, the more he gives away. It is the silent one who holds power, because his silence forces the other to reveal. Every word spoken into the void becomes leverage surrendered. The man who offers nothing forces the world to give him everything. This is Machiavelli's law applied in real time. Now consider relationships. Most pour themselves out in the name of intimacy. They expose every thought, every feeling, believing this will make them loved. But what it makes them is ordinary. Familiarity kills mystery, and mystery is the root of obsession. Machiavelli understood that love fades when fed too easily, but desire burns when starved. The man who withholds, who does not explain himself, who offers no emotional validation, becomes irresistible precisely because he is unknowable. They lean in to decode him. They chase to understand him. They project complexity onto his silence. They do not fall in love with him. They fall in love with their own imagination of him. That is the cruel truth of human nature. We do not love reality. We love mystery, and the void is the greatest mystery of all. Enemies, too, fall victim to this law. An insult demands a reaction. When you react, you validate the insulter. You confirm his relevance. But when you remain still, unmoved, unreadable, you deny him everything. His words collapse under their own weight. Doubt begins to corrode him. Did he miss? Did he matter? Did you even notice? That doubt is more destructive than any counterattack. Machiavelli would say, never grant your enemy the confirmation he seeks. The silence of the void is humiliation enough. The modern world despises mystery. It demands transparency, constant updates, endless performance. Social media rewards those who scream the loudest, who confess the most, who expose their wounds for attention. But attention without mystery is empty. It creates familiarity without reverence. And familiarity breeds contempt. The man who resists this, who offers nothing, who remains rare and unreachable, becomes sacred in a culture drowning in exposure. His silence is not absence, it is dominance. His refusal to play the game makes him the only one who cannot be controlled by it. To master this law requires killing the instinct to explain, to justify, to prove. It demands suffocating the urge to be liked, to be seen, to be understood. It feels unnatural at first, because every man is taught that respect comes from performance. But Machiavelli whispers otherwise. Respect comes from scarcity. Influence comes not from giving, but from withholding. Scarcity makes each word you speak worth gold. Scarcity makes each glance a verdict. Scarcity makes your presence unforgettable. The more you restrain, the more they invest. The more they invest, the more they obey. Do not mistake the void for emptiness of spirit. The void is not numbness. It is not death. It is fire under control, power contained, energy restrained until it becomes unbearable for others. They can feel it. They can sense it. They know you are not hollow, but full, yet you refuse to spill yourself onto the ground like everyone else. This is why the void draws them. They want to know what you hide. They want to taste what you refuse to offer. They want to see what your silence conceals. And the more they want, the more you control. Practice begins small. Withhold answers. Delayed responses. Offer no validation when sought. Let silence stretch until others break it. Do not fill the gaps they will. And every word they use to fill your silence is a confession, a surrender, a piece of leverage placed in your hands. Over time, you will discover the paradox. The less you give, the more you receive. The less you reveal, the more they imagine. The less you perform, the more they chase. And in their chasing, they bind themselves to you. Machiavelli's brilliance was not in teaching how to shout louder, but how to whisper less. Not how to fight harder, but how to let others fight themselves. The prince who withholds, who conceals, who delays, becomes untouchable. He shapes the battlefield without moving. He rules by not appearing. He commands by not declaring. He is everywhere because he seems to be nowhere. And those who try to define him only define themselves. So understand this. The void is not passivity, it is strategy. It is weaponized emptiness. It is restraint forged into dominance. It is the refusal to enter their frame, the strength to let them collapse into yours. When you master the void, you stop chasing, you stop pleading, you stop performing. You become the one who makes others perform for you. You become the one they cannot decode. You become a question that has no answer. And that is why the void is feared. Because when you offer nothing, you are no longer measured by the standards of ordinary men. You rise above their emotional economy. You become untouchable, magnetic, terrifying. They feel you when you're not there. They lower their voices when you enter a room. They chase a presence you never try to give. They surrender not because you demanded, but because you withheld. This is the final truth Machiavelli left hidden. Power does not always come from more. Often it comes from less. Less speech, less exposure, less need, less reaction. And the less you give, the more they invest, the more they obey, the more they surrender. Silence is not absence, it is leverage. Restraint is not weakness, it is strength. And the void is not emptiness, it is the highest form of control. Offer them nothing, and they will give you everything. This is Machiavelli's law.